Well, welcome to Beyond Belief. You know, I have a lot of favorite guests on this program, but you're going to meet somebody in just a few moments here who is one of my favorites. She's a hypnotherapist, psychotherapist, regressionist. She has taken 3,000 people into some of their past lives, and she's written a new book called Meet the Hybrids. Welcome to Beyond Belief, Barbara Lamb. Hi,
Thank
Barbara.
you, George.
It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
I love running into you at conferences and places like that. The people love your work. How did you get involved in this?
Well, by 1991, people started coming to me who wanted to do regressions to very unusual experiences that they had had in this life. And these turned out to be extraterrestrial encounters. With the 8 hybrids whom my co-author and I extensively interviewed for Meet the Hybrids book, they all had this common pattern that they did not know until they were adults that they were hybrids, but they all felt really different from anybody else they knew. They all had different abilities, rather unusual abilities that some other people have some of, but they were all very psychic and clairvoyant. They could all see auras. They could all pick up very sensitively on energies in places and energies with different people, very tuned into different frequencies. This, by the way, is very typical of the other hybrids whom I've extensively interviewed for the book.
You see a similarity,
a
pattern here, don't you, with these people?
Oh, yes.
Do they feel human, the hybrids?
They feel human, except, yes, very human, except that they have these different abilities. Now, you see, these people, these hybrids, are here doing some wonderful service, the ones that I know. They're doing healing, they're doing teaching, they're doing counseling.
Do they tell people they're hybrids?
Sometimes they tell people they're hybrids.
And what's the reaction
Sometimes
of people?
they're just considered a very advanced spiritual teacher who's here for helping humans.
See, I would think, Barb, if somebody, and I know someone who claims to be a hybrid, she's a very gorgeous girl. They did well with this one. But she tells people she's a hybrid, and they walk away from her. It's almost like, oh, you know,
a little too uncomfortable.
She's strange.
The people who hear this are so often not ready to hear this, and that's completely understandable. So the hybrids I know don't go around saying, I'm a hybrid, but if they are asked, you know, you seem to be unusual, you seem to have unusual abilities, why do you think that is? They might say, well, I have some extraterrestrial genetics, but generally speaking, they're just offering classes and doing some coaching and teaching, counseling, healing, and not making a big point of being a hybrid. A couple of them have written books. Jacqueline Smith has written books, and Julie Kita. One of the special abilities that some of these hybrids have is communicating wonderfully with animals here on Earth.
I could see that.
Yes, so Jacqueline Smith is telepathy and very, very cognizant, very conversant with animals of all types. And Julie Kita, who is a hybrid living in Arizona, is very fond of all animals, communicates with them, and particularly likes the reptile type of life.
Like snakes.
And loves snakes, even poisonous snakes. She's entirely comfortable with them. And you see, she has a good deal of reptilian DNA in her. Several of these hybrids have reptilian aspects, reptilian genetics, and yet they look like
That's fascinating.
Perfectly attractive, likable human beings. And the reptilian hybrids have been known to shapeshift temporarily into their reptilian form. So that's happened with 3 of them whom I know about. One of them, a beautiful hybrid living in England, her name is Charmaine. The way that she got confirmation that she is a hybrid was having an encounter with some of her reptilian extraterrestrials, and she has encounters with other types as well, and genetics from other types. But in one encounter when she was about age 27 with her reptilian extraterrestrials, they helped her to shapeshift into her total, pure reptilian form.
And she can do that, goes back and forth?
And she can go back and forth as she pleases. Mostly she's human.
Yeah.
And, but when she shapeshifted into her reptilian form, she was absolutely delighted. Now, most of us might be rather horrified at the thought, but she was delighted because she had always felt some reptilian in her. And I hasten to say that even though reptilian extraterrestrials tend to have a very negative press here among us humans, we hear a lot of negative things about them. But I have discovered in this work that there are quite a number of different types of reptilians, different species of reptilians within that overall species. And some of them are very kindly, very friendly, very nice, good agendas that we would appreciate and definitely approve of. And she is one of that type of reptilian.
Do they go through a scientific study where scientists will look at their DNA and go, whoa, this is not human? Does that happen?
Well, you know, these particular 8 hybrids whom I know so well have elected not to have genetic testing.
We got to get that done.
Even though, understandably, almost everybody wonders, well, have they been genetically tested? Yeah. Of course, I mean, that's a normal thing.
The fact that they don't do it, doesn't that make you suspect?
No, it really doesn't, because I've talked to them at length about this. For one thing, they have been told, they have heard from other people being genetically tested, that the results of the genetic tests automatically get sent from the testing lab to a certain department of the U.S. government.
Interesting.
So what these hybrids are concerned about is if the people receiving this information would say, oh, these few people here are very unusual, very strange.
Right. Where did they
I think we want to investigate this. I think we might want to
dissect them.
Test them. Yes, they really are afraid of that.
The reptilians were like devil type.
Once they learn they're hybrids, you know, is this a positive or negative concern for the government?
Well, what they did was once they identified this applicant as a hybrid, the government was able to isolate that select few that could cause damage to the United States government. And that's the way they approached it. They approached it a national security issue. They said, now, these particular beings could be detrimental to national security.
Right.
So we just can't let them go out in society. So what they did was they set up a program where they isolated them, telling them they're going into a special group. And so they isolated them. They put them in some facilities where they could watch them. And during that time period that they're watching these known hybrids, the government has perfected some techniques to track them.
I see.
And those tracking techniques are used to keep track of them and watch them. So if they disappeared and went someplace else, we would know it. And there were instances, one instance that I know of, that one particular a man, woman, and child. Now, it wasn't the 14-year-old. It was another child. That was, I think, 16 or 17. That 3-member family got out of the detention facility, so to speak, and they were around the Washington, D.C. area. Now, that presented a problem So they activated a team of people, of FBI agents and intelligence officers to track him, that family.
Richard, let's back up a little bit. How could they just leave the detention center, and it's a highly secured area?
I'm not sure how they got out. And I don't know that we know how they got out. But we knew where they were going because we could track them.
Right.
And they were going to a residence in Virginia, in Vienna, Virginia. And so, and I don't know all the details exactly, but we knew they were going there, and I don't know how we knew they were going there. But the government set up an operation to catch him there. And sure enough, with the cooperation of this intelligence collection team, they called it, they caught up with him and they captured him and brought him back to a facility that they could be housed in.
Did they go willingly?
There was some form of a confrontation, yes, but I don't know the whole details.
Right.
But and because of that, now we know that the techniques that we developed to track these hybrids worked because we did track them. So now we knew how to track them. Now this also presented a major problem because we realized that these people that came in that we selected for arc weld couldn't be the only hybrids out there.
Right.
So we knew there were hybrids that intermingled with a society, and maybe not just American society, maybe the world population.
You have a detention center. You have all of these applicants from Project ArcWeld. Those were all able to be tracked, but could you track ones that did not go through the ArcWeld system?
Well, that was developed later.
Okay.
That was part of the Katie Smith story.
Right.
So at this particular time period, and we're still in like the late 70s and maybe really early 80s, we knew DIA, CIA knew, and there were select people within the FBI in the Foreign Counterintelligence Division that knew that we had hybrids. Now, what are we going to do about that? Well, we have to address that issue because are they friends or are they foe? That's the thing, friend or foe. And so it's a complex dilemma for the government. And we know that they're out there. And then, of course, this brings up the big question is, how many hybrids have infiltrated the intelligence community or the U.S. military? And that was one of the most worrying problems that the new president of the United States at that time, President Reagan, was briefed on.
And what are they doing here, and why are they here?
Exactly.
What's their agenda?
The hybrids that are working for the SSP look like you and me, and they have a different energy about them, but they have normal functional lives. Very rarely they have families. Some do, and they want them to because they want to have a lineage again, but it's very hard for them to have families because what they go through psychically, it's very, very challenging and difficult for them to even contemplate having a family.
Overwhelming emotion and energy floods, is that what you mean?
Not just that, but also what they're involved in. I think it's just they don't know if they're going to be like living tomorrow.
Right.
Because their life could also be in danger. They face a lot of challenges that we don't face on a day-to-day basis.
So the SSP is very demanding of these hybrids.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And they have to do what they say or they'll kill them.
Maybe, but it's more to do with they have a target. They said, you have to, let's say, build a facility, in one country. It has to be done tomorrow. Like you have to start doing it. Doesn't matter what you do. This is your job, and you have to do it. And they can't say no.
Wow. How are they finding the person that needs to become the hybrid or a hybrid that needs to be, upregulated? Like, how do they find them? Yeah, how do they find them, pick them out? Or?
So basically, the once you are in the same gene pool as those hybrids, is from like family members to family members. So they know how to track them down and how to train them from very early on. The parents have to be open with their own children about what they're involved in. So they are being familiarized with the environment they're growing up in. And then there are some kids that are like, especially orphans, who are being taken for those programs to become hybridized. So they modify them to achieve a certain purpose as well. And those beings are sent off usually to a place in the Rocky Mountains in Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this facility. What can you tell about it?
I can say that you can't see it from space or from, even if you were like right opposite it, you cannot even see the entryway. Everything is completely cloaked. The entryway basically is it's a rock face, and it opens up. It's a mirage. It doesn't exist. It's not even there. But that's the entryway for that facility down into the mountains. And you can't reach it by road either.
So how do you get there?
Usually usually vehicles.
Like from where are the entrances to this area, and are there portals there?
Everything that's in that facility are not using human-made vehicles. It's all SSP related and crafts. So those crafts can go deep down into the core of the earth and accessing different tunnels.
Okay.
And accessing different countries from there too.
So does the SSP have the technology to go interdimensional, obviously? I mean, if they can go to inner Earth and back, I mean, then they've conquered time travel and everything.
Oh, yes. Yes, they've done everything.
So this is a very advanced facility.
Yes,
Okay.
very, very advanced.
And the only
one of the most advanced facilities in the world for the SSP. And it's very, very secretly guarded.
Is it like a square mile or a couple acres? Do you know how big the size is under in the mountain, I guess?
It's in the mountain and it's massive. It goes deep underground, pretty much like all secret facilities that you know about.
Yeah.
But to access those tunnels, you have to imagine, you can imagine those like speed trains in underground tunnels. Those facilities use crafts, vehicles, to go down the shafts. So you can imagine a circular UFO or craft going all the way down as a transportation vehicle to go all the way down to the speed train and then to dispatch whoever has to go to different tunnels.
Where did the workers get into the speed train? From where? From BC? From where? From a base?
From all over the world.
All over.
All over the world, and not just Canada or the U.S.
I know they have such a bad rap, and maybe some of them are. Some of them seem to be more sort of power hungry, more arrogant, more sort of egocentric. They have big musculature and fancy costumes
Yellow
sometimes,
eyes.
and yellow eyes. Yes, but some of them are much more gentle and friendly, benevolent, kindly, good-willed, even loving. And I say that with conviction because I myself had an encounter awake in the light of day, plenty of daylight, with a reptilian who suddenly showed up. And I spent a few minutes with him, and I had a completely positive feeling about him. And other people I know whom I've worked with have had some positive experience.
Now, when you say showed up, what do they do? Just walk through the door?
Well, in this case, I don't know if he walked through the door. I think, you see, so many of these beings are interdimensional. I think that he suddenly, poofed, appeared in the middle of my living room one afternoon.
Maybe he knew you wanted to meet one.
Yes, Well, the reason he came to me, he said, was because he and others know that I do a lot of this regression therapy work with experiencers, and that every once in a while, if I was away on vacation and not doing this work for a while, that the thought would occur to me, I wonder if this could really be happening. Wonder if this could really be true.
What do you think the mission is? What are they trying to do here and accomplish?
Well, in that particular case with that reptilian, he said because you're so telepathically tuned in, even from remote distances, tuned into us humans, they knew that every once in a while I would have that thought about the work I was doing. And yet when I was doing the regression work with people, they knew, and it was true, that I was completely with the person, following along, and believing what they were experiencing in the regression memory of whatever their experience was. But I don't know. You see, I think the Earth is in more trouble than
Maybe
it
so.
has ever been because of our nuclear proliferation,
There's so
our
much
nuclear
hate.
capability, and all the polluting that we're doing of the Earth getting worse and worse. And some of these other species who are very benevolent and caring are really, really concerned. For one thing, they have a right to be concerned because with our nuclear capability, if we start sending off nuclear bombs,
Right.
it not only would pollute the Earth and probably eventually eliminate all life on Earth, which we don't want to see, and even these other beings don't want to see, but the nuclear radiation rises and spreads out, not only, they say, through our solar system, but
through
beyond the solar system
And they pick that
to
up.
other planets. So we are a very dangerous place with what we're tampering.
As a regressionist, as a hypnotherapist, as a psychotherapist, are you in shock over what you're discovering about this hybrid connection?
Not really, because I think the shock came more when I began to realize that people were really having visits and encounters with extraterrestrial beings. So that was back in the late 1980s and 1991 in particular, when people started really coming to me for this. So it's been sort of a slow, gradual build-up from 1991 until about 2009 or so,
Is
when
it more
I
prevalent
think I
now?
met my first hybrid living here. And that, so I wasn't shocked, but wow, that's a whole new aspect that's opening up for me that I hadn't realized before. Andromedans,
The Arcturians are like
Sirians,
bird-like, aren't they?
the Arcturians, well, there are different types of Arcturians, actually. These people have the genetics from what they call blue Arcturians, who actually have a beautiful blue tone of skin.
Right. Like
And-
avatars, almost.
Yes, like the avatars in the movie.
Yeah.
It's quite similar, not exactly. And they're sort of shining beings. They're glowing. They're very, very high consciousness, beautiful, wonderful beings. Very kindly, very unconditionally loving. And mantis beings are involved
I
with...
don't like them.
Oh, the mantis beings...
They don't look.
Well, you know, they look like big bugs.
Yeah.
They're very tall, very bug-looking, but they are wonderful. Any experience that I've had regressing people to their encounters where they've been involved with mantis beings, they always experience the mantis beings as being extremely kindly,
Really?
loving, intelligent, playful. In fact, one time I was talking with a friend sitting in my backyard, my garden, and talking to the friend on my cell phone for about 20 minutes, talking about the mantis beings. And I was aware that I was talking in very, very enthusiastic tones.
Yeah.
And because I was excited about the mantis beings I had learned about through all this regression work. And after 20 minutes of talking excitedly about the mantis, I looked down on my lap, and there
it was.
a tiny 1 inch tall at the most, little baby mantis being suddenly appearing on my lap.
How do you know that wasn't an extraterrestrial?
Well, I don't know that it wasn't an extraterrestrial. It could have been. It just seemed that the synchronicity of talking about the big mantis
And there
beings
it is.
and seeing instantly this little one. I hadn't even known we had praying mantises in my back garden.
That's
but
great.
There it was, yeah.
Barb,
Anyway,
go ahead.
there are a number of different species, and the Syrian, that's S-I-R-I-A-N, Syrian A and Sirius B beings have contributed their genetics to some of these hybrids. And the tall white zetas, the little gray beings that we hear so
gosh.
much about, quite a number of different species.
Are we a
Is there-
farm for them?
Are we a farm? Well, what an interesting question. You know, we don't really know what their motivation is, except that the beings who contributed genetics to these hybrids, whom I know, they did this for a very wonderful purpose. They did it because they have been very aware of humanity and the earth and what's going on here, particularly among human beings, and they're very concerned. They're very concerned about humanity and the earth.
And our direction.
And our direction, and the really atrocious things that many human beings do to other human beings, and how we're polluting the land and
got to shock them,
really
the
ruining the earth. Yeah. And so they really want to help. And they have an agreement among the cosmic communities of non-interference. So they don't come directly and help, and they can't really survive here very long anyway.
The hybrids or the
these
ETs?
Extraterrestrials
By themselves.
You know, would not be able to
But the
stay here
hybrids
very long.
can.
So yes, it's a brilliant plan, really, because then they take regular human beings and hybridize them. And I think not too many, but there probably are some all over the world, hybridize them with enough of their genetics so that these hybrids can be working here to help humanity. We're talking about very, very different life forms here,
right,
aren't we? People and animals.
Right.
No, the hybrid extraterrestrial human program is quite different because in many ways, even though there are differences, they are more like humans than our animal species are like humans. We're all intelligent, cognitive, talking, thinking, communicating beings. We all have a large range of value judgments, of perceptions, of spirituality. So these hybrids, or the extraterrestrials who create the hybrids, are very spiritually oriented.
That's an interesting
And they would like
take.
to see that the humans become more spiritually oriented.
Now, when they're born, where are they? Are they in hospitals? Are they born in a house?
Oh, the
Where do
hybrids?
they-
Oh, yes. You see, the hybrids, in most cases, become hybridized and continue right on through the whole gestation cycle. And they hear, my real home is somehow out there, and I long to go home. You're wonderful. I love you. You're fine parents. But I just keep sensing that my real home, my real family is out there somehow. So,
And the hybrids, if they're not told by their fathers, or how do they know that they are who they are?
well, the hybrids, you see, they grow up with the sense that they're not from here, this family is not their real family, and they notice that they have all these other abilities that other people in their family don't have. They keep experiencing that they're different.
Do they get sick? Do they?
No,
eat?
they don't. They tend not to get sick, particularly. So that's a help. But they do have, many of them, they do have unusual interior physical features.
If they were
like-
X-rayed, what would a doctor see?
Well, one of them was X-rayed because she had a series of broken bones. And so finally they tested the bone consistency and realized that she had a different bone consistency from the rest of us humans. Another one discovered over time, because of various tests, that she had a different blood consistency that was quite unusual. And one young man, one of our hybrids in England, actually had one of the lower internal organs up here in his chest. And another hybrid
Whoa.
had a different muscle consistency, actually a weaker muscle consistency, and was advised not to participate in sports because of that. But they look like regular humans. They do not look
They don't
peculiar.
have the big heads or the huge
No, the big
black eyes or
wraparound.
anything
No,
like
they
that.
don't. No.
those hybrids, I think, of years gone back, were noticeable, weren't they?
I really don't know about earlier hybrids. I just know about the ones.
About these.
The ones I can really speak
These are the
about,
ones
or the
they've
ones I know
perfected.
now. Yeah, but there also are these hybrids who are here really to help humanity. There are so many of the beings out there who have contributed their genetics to these hybrids, whom I know, who are extremely caring, really benevolent. In fact, they all are described as unconditionally loving. And they emphasize that we all are of the same overall creative source. So that's not only humans are of the creative source, but all of the species of what we call extraterrestrials in the cosmos and in the other dimensions as well are all of the creative source. So they go on to emphasize that we all, humans, extraterrestrials, other dimensional beings, that we all are one. We're not separated. You know, here on Earth, we tend to really emphasize independence.
True.
And separateness. I'm an individual different than you as an individual, but actually that's an illusion, according to these
But
beings.
are they trying to make us all the same?
No,
Carbon
not
copies?
the same, but to recognize that we are all one in life. We're one with all the species of life on the earth. That maybe is a little bit easier for many people to begin to ponder, but we're not only that, we're one with all the other species all over the cosmos. The whole idea of these hybrids is to assist humanity, to help us to save ourselves, and to help us save the earth, and to raise the overall consciousness of humanity out of some of these very dysfunctional ways that a lot of humanity is involved in.
And does it seem to be getting bigger and bigger, these cases,
Yes,
in
I
terms
think.
of numbers?
Yes, I think that we have a huge number of people, even in America, who have been having these extraterrestrial encounters. I think the number of hybrids is a much smaller number. But in 1999, there was a Roper poll, the second Roper poll, about extraterrestrial experiencers. And it was estimated
gone up,
that there were 8 million Americans
Wow.
having
Just
extraterrestrial
here.
encounters,
Yeah.
just in America. And it's a worldwide phenomenon. I've learned about the hybridization program that's been going on with a number of these extraterrestrial species and the humans whom they take for these experiences. And those hybrids, in my awareness for many years, were not human enough to live here on Earth. So they were living on the ships or on other planets with those beings.
And when you say not human enough, because
Yeah.
they didn't look like us?
They
or
didn't look like us enough. They sort of did, but if they were to be here, they'd be considered very peculiar. And then I began to realize by meeting certain people at conferences that there were some hybrids who were actually living here on Earth. The first one was a wonderful woman, a hybrid, named Cynthia Crawford. No, she did not know
don't
until
know
she
that.
was age 35.
Wow.
And how she found out was that her father told her about this. Her father was involved in some kind of unknown, some sort of secret program. She had not been intending to be pregnant. They were not really expecting that at that particular time. But she was pregnant and she carried that baby full term. and delivered, just like a regular mother here on Earth does. And that baby turned out to be the hybrid Cynthia. Now, Cynthia...
What a story, Barb.
Oh, yeah.
My gosh.
Now, Cynthia didn't know that until she was age 35, and her father finally thought, well, it's time that she knows how she was created.
Now, how did she accept this story?
She had always felt very, very different
Yeah.
than her family and from anybody she ever knew anywhere. She certainly felt like a different kind of child.
And when you hear the term, Barbara, hybrid,
Yes.
you obviously think part human, part extraterrestrial.
Yes.
Of the extraterrestrial type, are we talking about one sect, one race, or a number of different kinds of races out there?
We're talking about a number of different kinds of races. With these 8 hybrids, whom I've come to know extremely well, they come from 25 different extraterrestrial races. Now, there may very well be other hybrids who are a mixture of still more different kinds of races. I don't know about that. But the 8 whom we studied have had 25 different races contributing their genetics
And
to
that
them.
would include alien greys, the Nordiques that look like humans, reptilians.
Right,
It goes on and on.
Pleiadians,
Okay.
blue Arcturians.
You don't think, though, that it's a program to replace us?
No, I do not think it's a program to replace us. I think it's completely benevolent. Now, in saying this, I must admit that I'm certainly aware of the opinion of Dr. David Jacobs,
Yes.
whom I know personally. I think he's a
brilliant.
great guy. I really enjoy him very much. It just happens
He
that
takes the other
he
position.
has had people come to him who've had very different experiences in regard to ET human hybrids. And that whole view is a very, very pessimistic point of view. And it just happens that people have come to me about hybridization who have a very positive view. So all I can say is that maybe there's some of both. Maybe there are some hybrids who do intend eventually to take over the world.
Hybridization, to me, means taking good parts of both and mixing
Yes.
them into one.
Yes.
What's the good part of the ETs that they're trying to give us?
Oh, there are many, many good parts. For instance, they're very intelligent. They're very broad in their thinking, very open-minded. They're very psychic. They have healing skills. They read auras easily. They feel the frequencies. The hybrids have the vibrations, the frequencies of the extraterrestrials.
And what do they want from us, Barb? What do we contribute here?
Well, they recognize us as a very intelligent species and a very important species. For one thing, humanity, they say, has been comprised with extraterrestrial genetics from way back, probably in the beginning of what we consider humanity.
Does the delivering doctor know that they're hybrids?
No, the delivery doctor does not know that they're hybrids. Nobody knows. Even the parents don't know at that point that they're hybrids. But the parents do notice as the babies are developing into toddlers and
That
young
there's
children,
something.
they notice that they're substantially different.
Do we know how long they live?
Well, so far, the oldest one, whom I know, is age 65. They
65.
seem to live
Not too
normal
old.
human lifetimes.
Could they go to 200, 300?
I don't know if they could live beyond 100 or so. Time will tell. We don't know that
Is this
yet.
hybridization program, the one that you've been studying, relatively new, or has it been going on since the beginning of time?
Well, really, all I know is that these people, the oldest of whom is 65 at this point, 66 maybe by now, I don't know if this has been going on for centuries and there were other hybrids, I suspect, but I don't know, that it might be this generation type of happening.
Well, it's interesting. The Roswell crash occurred 2 years after we detonated nukes over Japan.
That's right.
Maybe they picked something up and went, whoa, they're now in this new age.
Yes.
We better get over there.
Yes, that's right. I think that really caught their attention. So I think that extraterrestrials have been paying attention to Earth. UFOs have been appearing, way, way back in our history, maybe at the very beginning of our human history. But I think there's much more activity now due to the fact that so many of these species are aware of what we're doing here and that we could be such a threat to them
Sure.
out there, as well as, of course, to ourselves.
How many hybrids do you think are out there on the planet?
Oh, I could only make a guess. I know of 8. David Jacobs knows of other ones.
Could be millions.
It could be millions. I'm not sure about that at all. Maybe thousands.
It seems
So-
to me, Barbara, that they're trying to replace humans with hybrids. All of us. That's my feeling.
Yeah. My own feeling about it, my own perspective, is that these hybrids or the extraterrestrials are not trying to take over humanity by creating hybrids. I know that David
promise?
Jacobs does feel that. I do
does.
not feel that in any way at all.
Could
I
you
have
be
no
wrong?
evidence.
Could you be wrong?
It's possible that there are different kinds of hybrid programs going on. The hybrids I have come to know, about 15 of them quite well, that they have nothing to do with taking over the world. They had everything to do with being here to assist humanity, particularly to raise the consciousness as much as they can of humanity, and to even help with the process of what is called ascension. And ascension means raising the consciousness in creating the, or increasing the spirituality of humanity as a general, so that we will be treating each other better.
Well, I hope
We'll
so.
be treating the earth better.
We should be doing that on our own.
We
but
should
we're
be
not.
doing it on our own, and we're not doing enough of it.
Would humans accept hybrids directly? Do they mesh well together?
Yes, humans and hybrids do mesh well together. Yes, because these people come across as regular, normal people. They look like regular, normal humans. They are regular, normal humans, except that they do have quite a bit of the extraterrestrial genetics of the types, by the way, that they do have encounters with. So an important point here is that all of the hybrids whom I know do have visits from and encounters
Ongoing.
with the extraterrestrial types that they have the genetics of. So many people consider that when extraterrestrials comes, they have abductions. It's a very common word for it. Abductions, being taken away for an hour or so and returned.
Do they show emotion? Do they cry?
Oh yes, hybrids do have emotion because they're primarily human. Yes, they do. They're very much
What kind
like
of
the
jobs?
rest of us.
What kind of jobs do they take in society?
Well, these hybrids whom I know do not have regular day jobs like so many of us do, but they do set themselves up to teach classes, give lectures, teach workshops, do individual counseling of people. Generally,
So they're trying to educate us.
yeah, trying to educate us, trying to, as they say, upgrade the consciousness, the viewpoint of humanity.
If an individual suspects that something is different about themselves, and they could be hybrids, but that's not the first thing somebody would think about, obviously. What do you recommend they do? Where do they go?
Well,
How many Barbara Lambs are out there?
unfortunately, I think there are not enough
There's
people
only one, I
who are
think.
doing the regression therapy. Most of the states have at least one person, and some of the other countries have one rare person who does this type of work. But if somebody would like to find somebody who does this regression therapy work for this particular purpose, they could go to the website of the group called FREE, which is actually officially called the Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, a long name. So the website is simply experiencer.org.